So why don't we get off of this depressing topic and actually get into our 52-man roster reaction? So I'm just gonna go through every single position group really and read off the names that we have and where and who ended up getting cut, and we're just going to give some quick reactions. We maybe not spend a whole bunch of time on this topic, but definitely something that we want to talk about. So I'm gonna pull it up right now. Okay, so for the quarterbacks, very first and foremost, Mitchell Trubisky starter, Nick Foles second string, and nobody as the third string. I think it was pretty expected, right, Reese?
Yeah, that seems about right.
And then for our running backs, we went off and did David Montgomery, Tariq Cohen, and the Wrecking Null, who we famously said was not going to make the team this year. And he showed up over our boy Artavis Pierce.
Yeah, definitely surprised on that one. I think that Artavis Pierce is a better fit for the offense, so I'm curious as to why they went with that move, but we'll see how it works out.
Yeah, still not a fan of Ryan Nall. I know a lot of people are saying that we just can't wait for his chance. Like it's his season. It's the Wrecking Nall season. But yeah, I'm not super excited for that. That's why I wanted to add another running back. I thought Artavis Pierce was surely going to be the running back if we kept a third one. Or I knew we were going to keep a third one, but I thought he was going to be the third running back, and I thought that Ryan Nall was only going to make the team if he ended up being our fourth guy and we kept a fourth running back. But nope, Ryan Nall actually makes the active roster. Then we get into wide receivers. We have Allen Robinson, Ted Ginn Jr., and Anthony Miller as our top three wide receivers. And then behind them, behind Ted Ginn, we have Darnell Mooney, who has reportedly been showing up in camp, had the most receptions. A lot of people saying he looks like the most flashy player, so some development there. And behind Darnell Mooney, we have Riley Ridley, and then behind Allen Robinson, we have Javon Wims. So I'm kind of... sorry. We also have Cordell Patterson, who is listed as a wide receiver after this entire camp. Matt Nagy and everyone hyped him up being a running back.
Yeah, interesting on that front, and I guess we'll see how that progresses and if we're going to see a lot of snaps with Patterson at running back. Interesting, though, that Riley Ridley, Javon Wims still couldn't really quite separate themselves. Mooney really kind of showed to be the class, to be the best of the rest. And we'll see what that means for Riley Ridley, kind of like snap count wise as the season goes on. I think he's someone that needs a lot of snaps, kind of be getting a good rhythm, getting a good feel with this offense. So I think kind of keep him at a low snap count. It doesn't really help either the Bears or him.
At tight end, we have Jimmy Graham, Cole Kmet, Demetrius Harris, and J.P. Holtz. And, I wonder if we got rid of him. I thought Eric Sauber was on the roster too, but it's not showing up. Maybe he's just on the back end of the roster or something.
Or he just got cut. So
he might have been cut. We can't really say right now, but for sure the top three are Jimmy Graham, Cole Kmet, and Demetrius Harris. I think that's kind of what we anticipated, right?
Yeah, I mean it was interesting between Holtz and Horsted, but I can see why they went to J.P. Holtz. I think that this is going to be a tight end group that's the best the Bears have put out in a while, so definitely going to be excited to see how they develop and the role that they take in the offense. Hopefully a lot bigger.
On the offensive line, our starters are Charles Leno Jr., Jermaine Ifedi, James Daniels, Cody Whitehair, and Bobby Massey at right tackle. So those are, obviously pretty expected. As far as our backups, though, we went ahead and took Rashad Coward, Alex Bars, Jason Spriggs, and Arlington Hambright, who we actually drafted in the 7th round. So good on Arlington Hambright for making this team.
Yeah, and it wasn't so certain that he was going to make it. Not surprised to see Jason Spriggs there and a couple of other guys. I think that this offensive line is going to be one to watch, maybe not for all the best reasons, but it's going to be crucial about the Bears' offensive success to see how they perform and how they do under Juan Castillo. So probably one of the more important or bigger things to watch in this coming season.
Starting defensive line is Akeem Hicks, Bilal Nichols, and Roy Robertson Harris. And then behind those guys, we have Brent Urban and Mario Edwards Jr. Oh, and John Jenkins at nose tackle. So, tons of depth there. I think this, obviously with the exception of Mario Edwards, kind of expected as always. I think that we're doing pretty good there. I ideally, I would like to add another nose tackle, but it doesn't seem like we're going to do that.
Doesn't seem like it, which is unfortunate. Of course, this with Eddie Goldman would be a fantastic defensive line. Still is very good. It's just gonna be curious to see how good Nichols can do in that nose guard position, and but definitely expect good things from Hicks. Ray Robertson Harris as always, and happy to see that Brent Urban made it, someone that I thought was going to make it for sure. And we'll have to see how Mario Edwards fits into it.
And then for our edge rushers, we have Robert Quinn and Khalil Mack, of course, starting out. And then behind them, Barkevius Mingo, Travis Gibson, and James Vaughters. So a much, actually, compared to last year, we have two new backup edge rushers and some good guys. Unfortunately, Khalil Mack's brother, Ladarius Mack, did not end up making the team or the practice squad. I think we kind of talked about that, how we didn't really expect that to happen. Not that he's a bad player by any means, but just someone who's really raw and more of a athlete and name brand than an actual great football player at this point in his career.
Yeah, and I really like this grouping in particular. Of course, it starts with the starters with Quinn and Mack, but honestly, I do kind of like giving Mingo a chance, someone that does have a lot of talent, but hasn't always put it into production, which of course is the major thing. But in a defense like this where I feel like he could flourish, I hope that he's able to kind of find his rhythm and his way into this defense. And Gibson and Vaughters, don't know extreme amount about Vaughters, but I do expect kind of everyone to get a good amount of rotation and good amount of snaps and hopefully keep everyone as fresh and healthy as possible.
And then at our inside linebackers, our two starters, which on the top end is a huge position group. We have Roquan Smith and Danny Trevathan, two extremely talented players. Roquan Smith, I think, is going to have a huge year this year. And then behind them, we have Josh Woods and Joel Iyiegbuniwe. So a little bit of, I don't know, I'm not too comfortable with the backups here, I have to say.
Yeah, I don't think anyone is. I think it's kind of been a position that's been understated as far as a concern for this Bears team. Losing Nick Kwiatkowski, I think, it's kind of might bring itself up if Trevathan or Smith, hopefully they don't, but go down with an injury for a decent period of time. Not having that really solid backup inside linebacker could end up being a point of issue for this team.
Absolutely. And especially with Danny Trevathan, he has some injury history. So we might see some serious play from Joel Iyiegbuniwe, who we drafted in the 4th round, 3 years ago. Kind of someone we haven't got to see a whole bunch of, but hopefully he's been progressing well. Really athletic freak when you look at him, and really explosive, kind of similar in a similar mold as Roquan Smith, but just doesn't have the same, mental, I feel like, processing capabilities or instincts as Roquan does. Let's go ahead and take a look at the safety position before we get into the cornerbacks to wrap it up. Looks like Treshaun Gibson actually won that starting safety role. We were talking a little bit. It seemed like we might actually see Deion Bush winning that position, but the Bears ended up going with Treshaun Gibson. He's actually questionable for the game on so this coming Sunday, so that's a little bit concerning, but really going to be interested to see Treshaun Gibson, Eddie Jackson duo. That's going to be a really nice duo. I think I saw something that since 2017, they have combined for 18 interceptions. So kind of a really crazy stat line there. Definitely going to be some really nice ball hawks in the back end there. And then in the depth, we have Deion Bush, of course, Sherrick McManus, who made that transfer there, Marquis Christian, who's technically out right now because he has to serve a 2-game suspension, and then DeAndre Houston Carson and Jordan Lucas, but Jordan Lucas opted out, of course.
Yeah, not surprised to hear Houston Carson make it, as far as McManus. I know that there's someone that have been, big depth pieces. I mean, what you said, McManus has been to the Pro Bowl a decent number of times for being the special teams specialist or something along those lines.
Yeah,
so definitely a good depth piece.
McManus is the longest term Bear. He's been on the team for a very long time at this point, and yeah, he's a good special teams player.
Yeah, so not surprised to see him. I know that Houston Carson has kind of had a good run for it where the Bears as well. I think he's made the past 3 rosters, so definitely something that they like there with him. Marquis Christian, someone that I thought would end up making the roster, and like you said, has to serve that 2-game suspension. But more than anything at the top, Deion Bush, great player, but I'm really happy that Treshaun Gibson was able to get that nod to be starter, because I really am excited to see how he lines up with alongside Eddie Jackson. So really excited to see how that plays out. I think they have the chance to be a really good duo with some great complementary play as far as each one of their strengths.
Then we go ahead and look at the cornerback core, which I think honestly was the most surprising to me as how this shook out. But Kyle Fuller, obviously cornerback 1. Cornerback 2, Jalen Johnson, rookie, actually wins out the battle there. It really started to come down between. I can't really say that. It seemed like he was kind of after Artie Burns went down, the verified starter as soon as that happened. And then we have Buster Skrine as a backup for Kyle Fuller, mainly going to play out the slot. Duke Shelley made the team, who I think we actually projected to not make the team. 6th round pick from a year ago. And then Kendall Vildor was the last cornerback on the roster. He ended up getting beat out, it seems like, by Duke Shelley. So Duke Shelley has to be mightily improving, but something that's a little concerning to me here when you look at this roster. By the way, we ended up cutting Kevin Tolliver, which was a bit of a surprise to me because he was kind of the main backup for Prince Amukamara. And I think that some people are kind of leaning towards believing it might have been some attitude issue. Maybe he had an issue with Jalen Johnson starting over him. We don't really know. He had issues when he was at LSU, which led to him going undrafted. But he ended up getting cut. So now a cornerback core that I initially believed had tons of depth with Artie Burns and Kevin Tolliver now really goes down to Kyle Fuller and Jalen Johnson as the starters, which, obviously good on the front end, but on the back end, we have a lot of guys who are accustomed to playing the slot, but also have some sort of outside cornerback experience, but not the tallest guys. So I don't know. It's a little bit concerning. I feel like the depth now.
Yeah. I think that, Tolliver walking was a bit of a surprise for sure. Kendall Vildor, I'm happy that he's on it. Duke Shelley, like you said, I guess we called for him to be cut. I do think there is upside in his game, but like you said, someone that isn't the best size. So, if he had to step in on the outside, it wouldn't be optimal. Jalen Johnson, of course, Kyle Fuller, feel good with them, but the depth is a little bit concerning. It did seem a lot better with Artie Burns. Of course, Buster Skrine being there is a big help, and I think he was someone, if Jalen Johnson was probably battling with anyone, I think it might have been Artie Burns, because he is a pretty versatile cornerback and
former first-round pick.
Yeah, he is good out of the nickel if he's at his best out of the nickel, but he can still play the perimeter pretty well. But I think as long as you have Buster Skrine, I think you're doing all right. Just with how versatile he is, this is the one that really pays off to have him. But kind of beyond that, yeah, a few question marks and not as strong as we anticipated, but I still think it's probably one of the better groupings they put together in a little while.
Yeah, and I was initially a little bit confident we'd see Kyle Fuller potentially move this next season just because he's going to have a really high payday, I think $20 million next year. So maybe someone who you consider moving if Jalen Johnson really performs and you have some good depth behind him. But now I'm starting to doubt that actually happens just because it seems like we lost a lot of that depth. And if we moved him, it would really be committing towards more of a rebuild than rather a retool into next season.
Hey guys, like our video, subscribe, and check out our bi-weekly podcast on Apple Podcasts. Thanks.